Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you're doing well and staying safe. Now, let's talk about Wendy Williams. So, the first part of her two-part documentary, Where is Wendy Williams, aired on February 24th on Lifetime. And I, for one, was very interested in hearing what was going on. A lot of the things mentioned in the documentary were, nothing new, at least not for me, since I've covered her story quite a few times over the past few years. But I digress. In May of 2022, the New York State court system appointed an independent guardian to manage Wendy's finances. Wendy was legally removed from the care of Kevin, her son, and the family. Now, my feeling on this whole documentary is that it was exploitative. There are times during this whole event where Wendy's cognitive function is questionable. As most of you now know, she's been diagnosed with dementia. Alcohol-induced dementia, according to her son, in addition to all the other ailments she has. And during some parts of the documentary, I felt as though she knew exactly what was going on. She had her moments where she was rude to her staff as well as the film crew, cursing, flipping the bird, angry outbursts, etc. Clearly, Wendy is not in a good place right now. In a court filing in February of 2022, Wells Fargo claimed that they had strong reason to believe that Wendy was the victim of undue influence and financial exploitation. Wells Fargo had frozen her accounts because it appeared as though there were some shady practices going on with her finances, allegedly. The attorney for Wells Fargo requested that the guardianship case be put under seal to preserve the confidential nature of the proceedings. According to Lifetime, there is no public access to court records. Her family were allegedly accused of taking advantage of her finances. According to Kevin Jr., he says that his mother gave him power of attorney because the bank assumed that she was incapable of making sound decisions on her own. The bank claimed that they acted in Wendy's best interest when they froze her accounts and involved the court system. No wrongdoing by the bank has been found. Her son was later accused of basically exploiting his own mother. But according to him, not once did he take money out of her account without her knowledge or permission. It's been a mess. In May of 2022, a New York judge appointed an independent guardian to control Wendy's finances. She obviously still doesn't have complete control of her money, and that is causing a few issues for her. Now look, this is a sad turn of events for Wendy. And while I'm empathetic to her situation regarding her current state of affairs, the fact still remains that Wendy is an alcoholic as well as a drug addict. Now, as far as the latter is concerned, that is something that she did in the past. Who knows if she's still doing it today? Here's the thing. A lot of these issues could have been avoided had she been on the straight and narrow. Her own son did say that he felt as though his mother was super generous towards him because of the guilt that she carried for her alcoholism. Her way, I suppose, of making amends was to shower her son with stuff, which, to me, does not fix the issue. And of course, the marriage to Kevin, or Kelvin Hunter, whatever his real name is, was quite possibly the biggest mistake she'd ever made. This man knew about her drink and drug issues and appeared to do nothing to get her to wellness. Instead, he concocted a schedule, a set of rules for her to follow so she could show up to work and do her job. He did that, not because he cared, in my opinion. He did it because he saw an opportunity to make a lot of money. He realized how lucrative it would be to have her around and put her to work like a mule. Typical Blackistani mentality. They will tell Black women how unimportant their education is, but will salivate at the chance to make money off of you. The money, the lifestyle is always appealing to them, all the while being an employee of hers. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Never marry the help. A lot of Black women, unfortunately, truly do have low self-esteem. Having money or education is irrelevant when it comes to relationships when you have no self-love and no self-respect. If you haven't done the internal work to get to where you need to be as a woman, you will forever be lost. You will always be looking for love in all the wrong places. The truth of the matter is, she married a derelict who pimped her out to the workforce. He used her for money and used some of that money to maintain a relationship with another woman. And when he had the outside baby with a side chick, he then had the audacity to demand spousal support after she filed for divorce. You see, this is what happens when you scrape the bottom of the barrel for a man. Even though Wendy's habits were in existence prior to Kevin and throughout their marriage, they got worse after the divorce. This is not shocking at all. This unnatural love that most Black women have for Black males is usually what destroys them. Celebrities are no different. These women will pick up a stray, they'll pick up homeless men, they'll pick up unknown people with no jobs. They will basically have relationships with the unemployed, and not just regular relationships. They marry these people. Look at Monique, a perfect example of a capable woman who allowed her unemployed husband to run her career into the ground simply because she wanted, quote unquote, Black love. These women just eat it up. They go goo goo gaga for Black males. Just like Wendy, Monique allowed herself to be pimped out. It's so sad. When you have a husband who calls themselves your manager, that's an employee-boss relationship. He's your employee and you are the boss. My question is this: how can you be attracted to that? Nothing quickly dries up the vagina than encountering a man with no career, no ambition, and no self-respect. This is not a family business. This is your career that they're latching onto. Like I said, never marry the help. It's always a mistake. Once you go Black, your entire world goes dark. Once you go Black, you're shit out of luck. I see a lot of similarities between Monique and Wendy. Both have low self-esteem. They have low self-worth because they invested all their time, effort, and energy in worthless stock. If your so-called husband isn't willing to go out there and get a job, be independent of your finances, what good is he? Black women have to understand that the success of Black love is predicated upon lying to worthless males about their value or lack thereof, propping them up onto pedestals that they don't deserve or even belong. Riding and dying for these people will quite literally have you dead from stress and disease. Life shouldn't have to be this hard. So, back to Wendy Williams. She talked about a comeback, right? Here's the bitter truth. The world has moved on. Yes, she's a living legend, and she's worked hard to be where she is. She's made a name for herself, and that's remarkable. Sure, she's always been a controversial figure due to her brazen ways of expression and exposing people. Some people don't like her and think that what she's going through right now is some kind of karma, but here's one thing that a lot of people don't understand. Wendy tapped into a niche. People were willing to listen, and they did. From radio to being a talk show host, she talked about so many things, good and bad. She talked about things that would be considered cringe. But guess what? People still loved it. She burped on television, lacked decorum, and wasn't quite knowledgeable on international matters. Matter of fact, she was clueless about stories of celebrities outside of the United States. She made a lot of mistakes. She mispronounced people's names all the time. And somehow, her audience found that funny and relatable. Sure, she's had an education, but there were also times when she came off ignorant. And brutally speaking, she's very insular. But guess what? People still loved her. That aside, what she's going through right now is definitely tragic. I empathize with her, but we also need to realize that she got to this place mostly because she didn't make her well-being a priority. She's still drinking, and that could be for a number of reasons. Now, I do understand that she sought help and checked herself into a wellness facility, but how long is that going to last? Not to be negative, but she's been struggling with this for quite some time now. The sad thing is, when you go through life without addressing trauma, using drugs and alcohol to self-soothe does not fix anything that you've got going on. There comes a point when all your issues come to a head. What goes up must come down, and what goes in must come out. Anyone who's ever gone through trauma will eventually realize that at some point, those issues will have to be addressed. And even if you choose not to address them due to stubbornness, the meltdown that follows is inevitable. There's always a breaking point for that internalized toxicity. Your life will unravel, whether you like it or not. Everyone's time of reckoning is different, and how your body reacts depends on the kind of trauma you've been through. Now, Wendy's been through a lot, from the fat jokes as a child and being put on diets as a child. It's taken its toll over time. And let's not forget that she was also raped by someone in the industry, allegedly. We have to say that.
I know that you really revealed yourself and put yourself out there, especially by depicting the rape scene in the film. Why was that so important for you? And why was it important for you to still keep some of those details, including the person's true identity, to yourself?
Well, I didn't do that on purpose. His name is Sherrick, and he was an R&B singer from the 90s or the 80s. And he had a song out called Call Me. And he was tall, like 6'5", and he date raped me. He was an artist. He came into town, into DC, and he mesmerized me with his twinkling eyes. He flipped the interview around to where he was interviewing me, and I was just all gaga over this man. And he asked me to go to an opening party, you know, an album release party with him that night. And before the party, I was date raped by him. And after that, I found out he had spent time in jail, and he was from California. All the things that, listen, you know, and then I was date raped in college. But, you know, those types of things happen to girls all the time, and they've been happening a lot, you know, to a lot of our mothers, grandmothers, great-great-grandmothers, and their great-great-grandmothers too. And date rape is something that women just have to know who they are with and know their surroundings and the circumstances. I put myself in a bad circumstance in both places. You know, in college, I was in the dorm room. I went to the guys' dorm room, okay? And not for the purpose of having sex. I thought he was my friend, but he used a vulnerable moment because we were smoking bud. And then with Sherrick, I went to his hotel room. I believed that he was going to change into, his album release outfit. And I always went to work with, full makeup and full outfit because I was always that DJ girl who never dressed like a DJ. I was always ready for let's go. And I'd be like, okay, let's go.
Let's not also forget that she lost her mother in recent years. Unfortunately, she didn't take the time or have the chance to grieve her mother properly. And the two were supposedly close. That was her girl, according to her. You cannot keep going through life just ignoring these issues. For certain people, it only takes one trigger and their whole world comes tumbling down. For others, it happens in phases, various stages. There's no amount of self-medication that will save you from the inevitable. It appears Wendy has been hiding behind a mask for a very long time and slowly bursting at the seams. I've always felt as though Wendy should have graciously bowed out while she was still on top. Unfortunately, her desire to cultivate fame and stay relevant brought her to the point she is now. She basically allowed herself to deteriorate to this point, and all we're left with is a shell of the woman she used to be. I wish her well. I really do. But a comeback? It would take a miracle for her to come back healthy, on top, while maintaining the audience she once had. She had a great opportunity, a wonderful career. She utilized some of those opportunities quite well, but the brokenness still had to be addressed. Unfortunately, things didn't end the way she thought they would. You can't keep abusing yourself and expect to bounce back every single time. Eventually, your body will say no. Unlike most people, Wendy had the resources to seek help and be done with it once and for all. The problem was that Wendy was not ready. No, let me rephrase that. Wendy didn't want to. Someone asked her why she drank during the documentary. Her response was, because I can. She didn't see the issue in downing an entire bottle. Basically, if other people could do it, why couldn't she? Until Wendy realizes that wellness is her responsibility and no one else's, she will continue on this downward spiral. I take SA and those types of crimes very seriously. Unfortunately, what no one tells you is that the wellness part of your life rests on you, the victim or survivor, and not the perpetrator. Same goes for Monique. Being raped by her own brother has brought about a lot of challenges. She too will have to do the internal work to come to terms with what happened to her. Alarm bells start going off when a woman refers to her husband, the man that she's intimately involved with, as daddy. That is weird. It's nothing to be normalized. Please get help. Look, as far as Wendy Williams is concerned, she's still a legend at the end of the day. And that dream that she had as a 6-year-old girl of being famous one day finally came true. All she ever wanted was to be famous, and she did it. Now, just a side note, I have my suspicions when it comes to this guardianship, right? It's hard to say what's really going on here when you have judges ignoring family members in exchange for strangers taking over Wendy's life and Wendy's finances. With that said, it doesn't negate the fact that it's also her fault that things didn't work out. She refused to give up alcohol, and eventually that became the catalyst in destroying her career, destroying her life. And yes, I know it's difficult for certain people to hear this, but she did this to herself. She chose the bottle over everything and everyone else, and in the end, the bottle won, and she lost. In the concluding part of Wendy's documentary, it was stated that she sought help and was doing much better. Well, that remains to be seen. She will have to prove to herself and her family that she's doing this for the long haul. One thing I do know about alcoholics and drug addicts is that they lie to maintain a facade. And sadly, in the end, it's not just them who suffer from those actions. People who are closest to them bear the brunt of that deception too. Also, Wendy had mentioned several times during the documentary about moving from her apartment, and it was weird how her place was all packed up and vacated while in rehab. It'll be interesting to see just how much of her money is left over after all of this. She may not have direct access to her money, but people are still getting paid. This is overall very sad for Wendy. So I have a question. Is Wendy a victim of circumstance or a self-saboteur? Please leave your comments below, and I'll see you next time. Divest like a butterfly. Bye, diamonds.